What is going on, everybody? It's Valley back with another Valorant video. Today we're talking patch 0.50 for Valorant going live probably today or tomorrow. So we're going to hop into this and cover this. It's a big patch, but before we get into that, I do want to apologize for my absence the last week. I've been moving, trying to get some ranked games in while everything's been hectic and really just try to put enough together for a good video, but we're still working on it, editing, that sort of stuff, but that should be coming out this week and we'll get back to a regular posting schedule. But for right now, let's hop right into the video. So, patch 0.50. A lot of changes to gun recovery time, rifles. They want to make shooting styles more versatile and more efficient, so tap, burst, spray, depending on situation. They also made changes to Sage, Cypher, Omen, Viper, Brimstone, and Phoenix. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. They've done some agent ability costs as well as some map changes. And the big thing that I like is that the spike automatically falls when it's stuck in an elevated location, which is a great change. Can't get stuck on high grounds anymore. Wonderful. But let's hop right into this. So, gameplay and balance. Weapon updates. You will no longer enter the walking accuracy state when transitioning from run to stop. So, basically, when you were running and then you would go to stop, whether that's you were pressing shift or you were just taking your fingers off the keys, you would enter the walking accuracy state, which would make you significantly more accurate when walking, and people would look like they were just full on one tapping you while sprinting. And so this is not something the game wants. It's a weird mechanic. It looks bad. It feels bad, and they're getting rid of it. I like this change. It's a solid change, and I think it's the correct one. Dead zone accuracy speed threshold was increased from 25% to 30%. So now that you can't gain that walk accuracy, they've increased the size of the dead zone, the full accuracy state, to make it a bit easier to get an accurate shot out quickly. So that when you stop dead zone right away, it's a bigger accuracy, right? So I think these are good changes that are going to make it harder for players that haven't gotten movement and counter strafing down to be accurate, but will force a higher skill cap in the long run. So I think it's a good change, all in all. Rifle changes. So recovery times on all rifles have been updated, and basically they just want to make firing more efficient. Base walk accuracy was increased from 0.6 to 0.8 degrees. So they felt like walk spraying with rifles was a little bit too effective. So they want to nerf that, where you're less accurate while walking and shooting. I think this is, again, a good change. You don't want to be having people walking and shooting where they are going to be almost as accurate as if they were just standing still. And then changes to the guns in particular. Vandal had its horizontal recoil reduced by 15% while crouched or stationary, and its gun recovery time was reduced from 0.4 seconds to 0.375, and its tap efficiency was increased from 4 to 6. I think overall these are good changes for the Vandal, especially the horizontal recoil. When you're crouched or stationary, the horizontal recoil on the Vandal is ridiculously hard to control, and I think this is overall a solid change. Phantom gun recovery time reduced from 0.55 to 0.35, and tap efficiency from 3 to 4. I don't think this is the hugest change for the Phantom. Most people are just spraying it anyways. They don't usually do the like bursts with it, as far as I've seen. But if you're not killing someone with a quick like spray down, then I guess if you're bursting, this is a solid change. But overall, I think the Vandal one's a little bit bigger because people tend to burst more with that gun. Bulldog automatic fire gun recovery time reduced 0.55 to 0.35. This is a fine change. The Bulldog's not weak. It's not strong. I think it's in a good spot. And I think this is just a nice quality of life change. Especially since it's in the automatic fire and they didn't like nerf the ADS. So, and then the Guardian, I don't like this change personally. Gun recovery time 0.4 to 0.35. It's not a huge change. It's not a huge difference, right? But the Guardian feels really strong to me because you can be standing right next to each other, someone, and get 3 body shots off in the time it takes a Vandal to get 3 body shots off, and it'll do so much more damage while still being a one tap to the head. I think it's just incredibly strong as it is. So this might be a little bit of a too much of a buff, but we'll see as it goes. They also changed some machine guns. They wanted them to be more viable and bought more often. So your Ares and your Odin. Ares had its price reduced by 100 creds, and it had its firing error reduced from on bullet 1, bullet 5, and bullet 10. So trying to make it more accurate and cost less, so people tend to buy it more, which I don't think is a bad change, especially putting it at 1600 cards instead of 1700. You're not making that decision between getting a Spectre and an Ares, that 100 cred difference. So I think this is fine. Odin, they reduced the amount and intensity of the horizontal recoil after the first 8 bullets. Again, this is fine. Not much of a change to the Odin, but should make it hopefully a little bit better and more accurate, so maybe people will pick it a little bit more. Agent updates. This is the nitty gritty, the meat of the changes. So Sage, everybody knows Sage is OP. Her slow orb zone duration decreased from 9 seconds to 7 seconds, and her slow orb slowing amount decreased from 65% to 50%. I think these are good changes that nerf her slow orb. The slow orb is incredibly strong and feels really bad to play against, especially now that you can't b-hop through it. So reducing its duration, so it's not you're not sitting there for 9 seconds waiting for this thing to go away, and this reducing the slowing amount is going to be good as well, because man, you could be full sprinting through this with your knife out, and it still takes forever to get through those slow orbs. So this is a good change. Not sure it's enough, but we will see how this goes moving forward, because I think this will be a good quality of life change for her, and I think it will make Sage a little bit less viable, but I think she's still going to be top tier overall. Her healing and her wall is just too effective. So, Cyber Cage. So Cypher changes. Cyber Cage no longer slows enemies that move through it, and Spy Cam cooldown when destroyed increased from 30 to 45 seconds. So I like the Cyber Cage change. It's one of those abilities where, like the slow orb from Sage, when the cage goes up, I'm not going through that. It slows me down. It reveals me. There's not a good way for me to push through this. Whereas, like, if I wanted to push through a Molotov or a Viper Venom or something like that, I could. This is one of those things where I feel like I'm just going to get absolutely demolished, and I have to stand there waiting for it to go down. So, getting rid of the slow, I think, is going to be a good quality of life change. You still get the informational value, but it's one of those things where it's not going to slow you down, and I can just push through pretty effectively. So it's not too big of a nerf. He'll still be really effective informationally, and but I do think it's nice for people trying to push into him. And spy cam cooldown. This is just good because people are throwing out spy cams like Silva darts. It's just on such a low cooldown that you can get multiple in a round, and it's pretty broken. So I think they just don't want you to be throwing them out right at the start aggressively to see, like, oh, this person's there, and try to get them to shoot the thing and then peek aggro or realize that. So I think they want you to be more creative with where you place your spy cams. So I think this is another good change to really make you have to think about how you play Cypher. Omen gets some buffs. Dark cover smoke duration increased 12 to 15 seconds, and dark cover smoke projectile speed increased. Dark cover cooldown increased 30 to 35 seconds. I think these are all really good changes for him. It makes him compete a little bit better with Brimstone. I still don't know if it's going to make him viable enough, but right now he's incredibly weak in comparison to Brimstone at higher elos. So I think these are just good for him to be able to get more smokes out and control the map for longer, and should make him a little bit stronger overall. Viper, Snakebite radius increased 350 to 450. This is solid to just match other like area denial abilities like Molotovs from Brimstone, Phoenix, etc. This isn't a huge change to Viper. I think Viper's in a good spot overall. I think her abilities are strong but not overpowering, and I think she has her place in the meta. So I think this is just a nice quality of life change. And then Brimstone, Phoenix, and Viper. So they changed it so that it's harder to b-hop out of those AoE damaging abilities, those Molotovs, Snakebite, etc. So height required to jump out of all damaging area denial abilities 80 to 100 was the increase, and then damage tick speed was increased for Snakebite, Fireball, and Incendiary, though the total DPS was not changed. So this is just a nice thing to allow those abilities to get more value when people are trying to push through them instead of waiting. So I think that's a good change. Agent ability credit cost tuning. Some of these are good, some of these I don't agree with, but they wanted to increase and decrease some of the creds for certain abilities. So Sage Barrier Orb increased from 300 to 400. That's good. Barrier Orb is incredibly strong. I think this is a solid change. Raise Blast Pack increased from 100 to 200. Also good in my opinion. Phoenix Curveball increased from 100 to 200. I don't like this change. Phoenix's Flashbang is incredibly weak in comparison to, say, Breach, and I think overall it's his weakest ability, and this is why I don't feel as though it should be increased. Like, why would I want to pay for the ability to twice for double the cost of my firewall, right? I'm going to significantly take my flashbang less and less as Phoenix because of this change, and I think it's a pretty big nerf to him overall. Brimstone's Incendiary decreased from 200 to 300, increased from 200 to 300 credits, excuse me. I don't think this is a bad change. I think this is solid. I think his Molly is pretty powerful and is actually better than Phoenix's with its ability to bounce. So, solid. And Jet's updraft reduced from 200 to 100 credits. Basically, they want you to be able to get updraft more. I think people aren't buying updraft that much, and they're trying to make Jet more viable without massively buffing her. So, I think that's overall a good change. The next things are just quality of life changes. Agent armor, so armor from prior rounds that carries over is now going to stay. So if I have 24 out of 50 shields left after a round, and the next round I decide to buy 1,000 shields, but then decide I don't want those shields anymore, I can sell those shields back and still have my 24 out of 50. And so I think this is a nice change. People have been complaining about this. Clearly Valorant is listening, and yeah, nice to see. They reduced the max credit cap from 12,000 to 9,000, which is good because teams are able to stay in rich economic state for way too long with 12,000 credits max. So this should allow other teams that are trying to make a comeback to be able to crawl back economically a lot easier, and not a lot of people to buy ops for 4 rounds in a row, you know? So character updates. Silva's Aldrone now includes a layer of sound for engine rotors, so that's just better audio. And then map updates, not too much. Haven has some exploit systems in place. They fixed some stuff for Cypher, for all maps and stuff, so that you can't really abuse those sorts of stuff. And then split. Attacking teams have been finding difficulty finding a foothold in territory control across the map. Everybody is complaining that split is too defensive of a map, and they want it to be better for attacking. So they changed where the blue walls on split are. So defender barrier and B mid was pulled back, and now the entrances are in the top of the staircase in B tower and in the entrance to vent. So pretty far back. And then the defender barrier has been pulled back at A ramps, while the attacker barrier has been pushed forward at A main and at B main. Angled the wall on the left interior of B tower when pushing up the stairs from mid. So this removes more of a 50-50 angle check when pushing into this space. So it should make it more approachable for you to try and gain control of that area. And then the Radianite crate in B has been changed to a metal crate to provide more cover when planting the spike. Overall, just trying to make it better for attackers, trying to make it so that you don't have to push as far, and that they can't hold as aggressively on defense. I think this is overall a good change. 2 split. This map feels oppressive when you're playing offense, especially against a good team. Generally, I think it's just good. Rest of HUD, UI, and quality of life things. So basic stuff, bug fixes, nothing so big that there's really worth talking about. But overall, I do think these are good choices by the Valorant developer team. I think a lot of these changes are good. Some of them are just quality of life changes that are going to be really nice and feel really good. Others are great changes to maps like Split and good balancing changes. There's a couple I disagree with here, and I've expressed that, but generally I feel like this is a good patch, and I'm glad Valorant is listening to community feedback on what they want to see and is trying to make patches and balance the game accordingly. So that's it for this video. If you like the video, please leave a like, subscribe, comment down below what change you like the most out of all of these. I will be back on Thursday with another video, and yeah, we're gonna get back to a regular upload schedule. But yeah, let's do it. Peace.